Wealth is not a matter of chance. It's not something reserved for the lucky or the chosen few. Wealth is a consequence, a natural result of thinking in a certain way, behaving in a certain way, and seeing the world through a certain lens. If we train the mind properly, we will discover that prosperity is not something to chase. It is something we attract. And so today, I want to take you on a journey that begins with a very simple but powerful idea. You become what you think about. Not what you wish for, not what you daydream about, but what you consistently think about. And if your thoughts are magnetized with purpose, clarity, and the right understanding of how wealth actually works, then you will begin to pull into your life the people, opportunities, and situations that match that mental frequency. Now, the first step is to examine the nature of your thoughts. What occupies your mind from the moment you wake up? Are your thoughts colored by lack, by frustration, by anxiety? Or are they guided by abundance, calm expectation, and belief? Because whether we know it or not, the mind is a broadcasting station. It is constantly sending out signals. And these signals, what we truly believe, not just what we say, will determine what is drawn back to us. You see, everything begins in the mind. And if the mind is right, the conditions will eventually be right. And if the mind is confused, negative, or unfocused, then so too will be the results. That's why I want to encourage you, if you find value in this message, take a moment to subscribe, to like this content, and share it with someone else who is on the same path. Because just like you, they're searching. And when the right idea lands at the right time, it can transform a life. Let us begin then with a fundamental truth. The human mind is like fertile soil. It doesn't care what you plant in it. Fear or faith, worry or wealth, whatever you choose to feed it will grow. If you plant thoughts of scarcity, of failure, of envy, it will yield those things in abundance. But if you plant thoughts of prosperity, gratitude, faith, and service, your life will begin to reflect that harvest. And just like a farmer must tend to the soil each day, you too must tend to your mind. You must guard it carefully, nurture it with good ideas, and remove the weeds of negativity as soon as they appear. This is not magic. This is a law. And the law is simple. As you think, so shall you become. And as you believe, so shall you receive. No one escapes this. Now, some people resist this idea. They say, if it were that easy, wouldn't everyone be rich? And the answer is simple. It is easy, but it's not common. You see, most people never train the mind. They allow the environment to train it for them. They absorb the fears of the crowd. They follow the path of least resistance. They think the same thoughts they did yesterday and expect a different life to arrive tomorrow. But the men and women who truly succeed, who create not just wealth but peace of mind, are those who have learned to think independently. They take time to think about what they want. They write it down. They visualize it. They surround themselves with ideas and people who lift their standards. And over time, they begin to think like the person they wish to become. And then, without even noticing, it becomes true. I want you to imagine your mind as a magnet, a powerful, unseen force drawing toward you the essence of your dominant thoughts. What you dwell upon, you draw toward you. If you dwell on lack, you attract more lack. If you dwell on abundance, you attract opportunity. The mind does not argue. It does not question. It accepts and returns, like a mirror reflecting your inner world. This is why you must begin today, not tomorrow, to change the channel of your mind. Tune it to the frequency of wealth. Think of yourself as already in possession of that which you seek. Begin to act, think, and walk like a person who is calm, capable, and blessed. Do not wait for the world to confirm it. Confirm it in yourself, and the world will follow. There's a law I'd like you to write down, repeat it out loud, and if you believe in the power of declaring a new identity, I encourage you to type it below in the comments as a signal that you've made the decision to think differently from this day forward. The law is this: I am one with wealth and wisdom, free of fear and doubts. Say it, write it, embody it, for the mind responds not to wishful thinking, but to definite self-command. And the more often you impress this truth into your consciousness, the more naturally your actions and outcomes will align with it. Now, many people ask me, but Earl, what if I've failed before? What if I've tried and it didn't work? And I always respond with this: failure is nothing more than feedback. It is not a life sentence. It is a whisper telling you that your thinking or your habits need adjustment. That's all. Every successful person you admire has failed. But the difference is they did not stay down. They did not let the outer circumstances write their inner story. They adjusted, they recommitted, they remembered who they were and where they were going, and they moved again, this time with more wisdom. So if you failed in the past, that's fine. That's useful. The question is, will you think differently now? I want to give you something to begin practicing immediately. Each morning when you wake up, before checking your phone, before speaking to anyone, take 60 seconds and focus your mind on your vision. Picture it as clearly as you can. Feel the emotion of already having it. See the life you are building. Say the law aloud. I am one with wealth and wisdom. Do this with faith, not with hope, not with desperation, but with quiet confidence, with expectation. And repeat this practice again before you sleep. These small rituals done with consistency are the seeds that create massive transformation over time. Remember, the mind is always working. It's never idle. The only question is, will it work for you or against you? Will it build the life you want or reinforce the life you wish to leave behind? And that answer depends not on the economy, not on your background, not on your education, but on the quality of the thoughts you choose to entertain. Wealth begins in the mind. It grows through action, and it sustains itself through discipline and understanding. If you will stay with me through this journey, if you'll commit to applying the truths I'll be sharing with you over these next sessions, you will begin to notice a shift. Not because the outside world changed, but because you did. And that shift will make all the difference. Every great achievement in history began in the mind of a single person who dared to think differently. Think of the inventions that changed the world, the businesses that revolutionized entire industries, the leaders who altered the course of civilization. They all began not with money or connections or luck, but with a single thought, a vision, a bold and focused idea held in the mind of someone who refused to conform. This is the power of original thinking. And yet this is the very thing most people abandon. They trade in their imagination for imitation. They exchange their inner compass for the approval of others. And so they drift, not because they lack ability, but because they've forgotten the origin of all movement is thought. Now let me make this perfectly clear. There is no such thing as standing still in life. You are either creating or disintegrating, either moving forward with intention or sliding backward through neglect. And what determines your direction? Thought. Not emotion, not desire alone, but thought sustained, disciplined, and aimed like an arrow. Most people live at the mercy of their moods. They wait to feel motivated. They wait for the right time. But the mind does not work on accident. It works on instruction. And if you don't instruct it, your environment will. That is why every morning, before the noise of the world gets in, you must claim your thought life. There is a trap I want to expose today. It is perhaps the most dangerous mental trap of all. And it is this, the trap of vague desire. You've heard people say, I want to be rich, or I want to be successful. But what does that mean? How much money? What kind of success? What exactly do you want? You see, the mind cannot act upon a fog. The subconscious cannot bring to life a blurry intention. The law is clear. Specific thoughts create specific results. General thoughts create general frustration. That is why the great men and women of achievement all had one thing in common. They were crystal clear on what they wanted. Let me ask you now directly. Can you write down your goal in one sentence? A single sharp sentence that contains exactly what you are working toward. Not someday, not vaguely, not a feeling, a defined result. A picture you could hand to a stranger and say, this is where I'm going. Because unless you can define your goal, you are not pursuing a dream. You are entertaining a wish. And wishes do not move mountains. But clarity does. Commitment does. And clarity begins with the discipline to decide. Decide what you want. That is the beginning of all wealth, all growth, all greatness. Now I want you to write that goal down if you haven't already. Put it on a card, read it every morning and every night. Keep it in your pocket, glance at it during the day. This card is not magic, it is focus. It is programming your mind to work for you, rather than scatter its energy across 100 meaningless distractions. And as you do this, speak this declaration aloud. I have decided my direction. I think with clarity. I act with power. Say it in the comments if you feel bold enough to commit, not to me, but to yourself. This is not just a ritual. It is reinforcement. Every time you say it, you strengthen the identity of a person who knows where they are going. Clarity is magnetic. The moment you become clear on your direction, you begin to attract the people, places, and ideas necessary to bring it to life. That's why the undecided remains stagnant. The universe does not respond to confusion. It responds to conviction. This is why indecision is not a harmless delay. It is a silent killer of dreams. A mind filled with maybe is a mind filled with fog. And fog, as you know, obscures vision and delays movement. So today, clear the fog. Make the decision. Even if you don't yet know how, make the decision about what. The how will come, because your mind, once focused, will begin to search, to reach, to connect the dots. That is the power of attention. What you focus on expands. Do not fear setting a goal because it feels too big. Do not fear writing it down because you've failed before. The past does not define the future unless you give it permission to. Every day is a new opportunity to begin again, this time with greater wisdom. And there is wisdom in defining what you want. You see, the mind will begin to work for you the moment you give it a mission. And your emotions, which once felt scattered and unstable, will begin to align with purpose. You will wake up differently. You will notice opportunities you once ignored. You will move with quiet confidence because direction creates certainty, not perfection, certainty. Clarity is a habit. It is not achieved once and forgotten. It is maintained, like a lighthouse that must be cleaned each morning so the light can shine through. And so I urge you, clean the lens of your mind every day. Remove the dust of doubt. Polish the glass with truth, and shine your light forward. Write the goal, repeat the words, guard the vision. For in doing this, you are not just setting a direction, you are transforming your identity. You are saying to the world and to yourself, I know who I am. I know what I want, and I am willing to think in a way that makes it real. Let me close today's message with this reminder. The difference between the successful and the unsuccessful is not talent. It is not luck. It is not charm or education. It is simply that the successful made a decision, and they made it clear. They made it definite. They wrote it down. They carried it with them, and they began to think in alignment with that decision. And over time, the mind, the body, the habits, the actions, and the outcomes all followed. Begin today. Define what you want. Declare it with confidence. Write it with certainty. And carry it like a compass. For the moment you do, the trap of vague desire will lose its hold on you, and clarity will lead you forward. Now that the seed has been planted and the soil has been prepared, we must turn our attention to the third truth, perhaps the most difficult for many to accept. You must let go of needing to know how it will all happen. This is the paradox that confuses the logical mind. You set the destination, you prepare as though it were already real, but you surrender the need to control the exact path. Why? Because control is not the same as power. Control is based on fear. Power is rooted in faith. The man who demands every step be revealed before he moves will wait forever. But the man who moves with faith, believing that each step will appear as he walks, becomes unstoppable. And this is where the power of trust enters. You must trust that the same intelligence that created you, that breathes you, that sustains all life, is now arranging circumstances to match your inner world. This is not hope. This is not superstition. This is law. The law is simple. Energy follows intention. When you make a decision, life begins to organize around that decision. Not all at once, and not always in ways you expect, but always with precision. And so the question is not, will it work, but will I stay in harmony long enough for it to work through me? You see, most people abort their dreams not because the dream was too big, but because their doubt was too loud. They ask, they prepare, but then they second guess. They allow fear to creep back in. They listen to voices that do not believe. And by doing so, they interrupt the very current they activated. So today I tell you, your job is not to know the details. Your job is to move with faith, to remain in alignment, to take the next right step without fear, without panic, without rushing. This is why so many of the world's great achievements came not from frantic effort, but from deep, quiet belief. Men and women who walked with calm intensity, not because they had no obstacles, but because they trusted something greater was guiding them. They acted with certainty long before the evidence arrived, and because of that, the evidence had no choice but to appear. When you move as if the goal is already real, you enter into resonance with the life you seek. You begin to vibrate at a level that attracts people, resources, and ideas in ways you could never predict. And this is why the greatest power you can develop is emotional consistency, to remain calm, to remain focused, to refuse the temptation to panic. That is how you move mountains, by staying grounded when others tremble. And here's the truth that rarely gets spoken. The delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't arrived doesn't mean it isn't on its way. The fruit never appears the same day the seed is planted. And yet, how many quit halfway through the process because they confuse silence with absence? The delay is a test, not of the world, but of you. A test of your focus, a test of your character, a test of your emotional endurance. Will you still believe when the results are invisible? Will you still walk with purpose when no one is applauding? Because if you can, then you are ready not just for success, but for legacy. You've proven that your vision is not fragile. You've shown that your desire is deeper than your doubt. This is the space where greatness is born, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, in the quiet mornings when no one is watching, in the silent nights where you choose belief over despair. That's where identity is forged. That's where the future is formed. And so I urge you, right now, to stop trying to force the how. Instead, anchor yourself in the what and the why. What do you want? Why do you want it? These two questions are the roots of every powerful life. The how will reveal itself when you are ready to act on it. Not before, never before. And when it does, it will not come with trumpets. It will come quietly, as a nudge, as a conversation, as a book, a quote, a voice that seems to echo something you already knew. That's how life speaks to those who are listening. And so if you're truly ready to become that person, if you're ready to rise into your future, then you must develop this one quality above all, inner stillness. In the noise of the world, stillness becomes your strength. It allows you to hear what others miss, to see what others ignore, and to feel when it's time to act. Stillness is not passivity. It is power under control. The river that cuts through stone is not frantic. It is focused. It is faithful. It flows with certainty, and in that flow it carves valleys and reshapes the land. You must become like that river, certain, unrushed, unshakable. This leads us to another principle you must write, speak, and declare aloud. I trust the process. I act with faith. I receive in perfect timing. Let those words sink into your soul. Comment them below. Say them each morning, because they are more than affirmations. They are activations. When you declare that you trust the process, you relieve yourself from the burden of desperation. When you act with faith, you release the energy that opens doors. And when you believe in perfect timing, you rise above anxiety and enter into peace. That is the mindset of the builder, the leader, the visionary. And if you're wondering how to cultivate this trust, the answer is repetition. You must condition your mind daily. You must feed it with truth. You must starve it of doubt. This is why daily routines matter, why morning disciplines matter, why you cannot afford to let random voices shape your internal weather. You are not weak, you are undisciplined, and that is something you can fix, not overnight, not in a weekend, but day by day, 1 hour at a time. Through repetition, the mind begins to accept what it once rejected. Through repetition, you teach your subconscious that belief is your default setting, and from that belief, all things flow. So let me ask you again, in the quiet of this moment, do you trust the process? Are you willing to take the next step even if the entire staircase is not yet visible? Are you willing to prepare without applause, to work without validation, to believe without evidence? Because if you are, then you have done what so few ever do. You've shifted your inner world. You've aligned with the invisible laws that govern all progress. And now the outer world must catch up. It may take days, weeks, even months. But if you remain calm, if you remain grounded, if you remain faithful, you will receive, not by accident, not by luck, but by law. There comes a point in every person's journey where belief alone is not enough, where clarity and preparation, though essential, must now be fused with something more active, something more tangible. And that something is service. You see, the world responds not to what you want, but to what you give. And if you've asked boldly, if you've prepared consistently, if you've trusted the process deeply, now you must prove your readiness by stepping into contribution. This is the forgotten pillar of every successful life. The question is no longer just what do I want, but how am I helping? And until you answer that question with honesty and action, the results you seek will remain just out of reach. Because the law is eternal and inescapable, your rewards will always come in exact proportion to your service. This is a law you must never forget. Write it, speak it, declare it publicly and privately. My reward is equal to my service. Comment it now so it takes root. Let your mind absorb it. Let your heart accept it. Because once you do, everything in your life will start to shift. You'll stop chasing and you'll start creating. You'll stop waiting for opportunity and you'll begin generating value. And the moment you begin to serve, really serve, with energy, with excellence, with care, and with consistency, you will activate forces that nothing can stop. Not time, not competition, not even temporary failure. Because no man can be kept down who raises others, and no woman can be overlooked who consistently uplifts her surroundings through intentional, valuable contribution. We are conditioned, unfortunately, to believe that success is about taking, about acquiring, about grabbing whatever we can and holding on to it. But this is a distortion. The greatest people, the most fulfilled, the most admired, the most generously rewarded, are those who found a way to give more than they took. And the beauty of it is this: service is not limited by your current position. You can be a beginner and still serve powerfully. You can be unknown and still make a lasting impact. Service is a mindset. It is the decision to turn your attention outward, to ask in every situation, what can I bring, rather than what can I get? And when that shift happens, when your heart opens to give, the entire world responds in kind. This is why you must look at your current job, your current environment, your current skills, not as obstacles but as vessels. Your job is not to wait for the perfect conditions. Your job is to fill the conditions you're already in with extraordinary effort and unique excellence. Because every seed of greatness was first buried in ordinary soil. And if you water it, if you nurture it, if you serve right where you stand, you will not stay where you are for long. Life moves the useful upward. It elevates the valuable. It multiplies the person who multiplies others. And so if you've been stuck, if you've been frustrated, if you've been asking why success hasn't arrived, this may be the reason. You've been focused on asking, but you've forgotten the power of giving. Service also does something even deeper. It changes your identity. The moment you start thinking of yourself as someone who contributes, someone who lifts, someone who adds value, you begin to walk differently, speak differently, think differently. You become a leader, not by title but by posture. And leaders attract opportunity. Leaders get called forward. Leaders get remembered, not because they are better than others, but because they consistently make others better. And that is the kind of person you are becoming. Not just a dreamer, not just a planner, but a contributor, a person whose presence makes things better. That is what the world is waiting for. Not more ambition, not more noise, but more service. Now I know there may be a voice in your head saying, but I don't have anything to give. And that voice is lying to you. You have your time, you have your attention, you have your energy, you have your experiences, your insights, your ability to listen, to help, to build, to uplift, to guide, to teach, to support. These are all currencies, and when you spend them wisely, the return is inevitable. But here's the secret: don't give to get. Give to grow. Give because you've become someone who gives, and in doing so you align with a law older than any economy. What you sow, you shall reap. Not always from the same people, not always from the same direction, but always in some form your reward will find its way back to you. And this brings us to a challenge. Over the next 24 hours, I want you to shift your posture completely. Instead of asking, what am I getting from this? Ask, what am I bringing to this? At work, at home, in conversations, on social media, in your thoughts, become a person of contribution. Look for needs, fill gaps, speak life, bring solutions. Be the first to help, the first to encourage, the first to give more than expected. Do this not once, but consistently, and then observe what happens. Watch how people respond. Watch how your energy changes. Watch how quickly your environment begins to reflect your value. This is not a theory, it is a practice, and like any great practice, it requires repetition. So say this with me now: my reward is equal to my service. Speak it in the morning. Speak it when you're tired. Speak it when no one notices, because eventually they will. You cannot be excellent for long without being elevated. The world will find you. The right people will seek you. The right doors will swing open, because service makes you magnetic. It makes you unforgettable. and it makes you unstoppable. So now the question is not, will you be successful? That's already been answered. You're becoming that person with each passing day. The real question is, how many people will you serve along the way? Because the greater your impact, the greater your reward, not just in wealth, but in meaning, in joy, in purpose, in fulfillment. That is the kind of life we are building together. One not just of achievement, but of contribution. One where the asking is matched by the giving, where the vision is backed by the action, where the dream is supported by devotion to something bigger than yourself. There is a point on this journey where the mind, no longer burdened by confusion, and the hands now guided by service, must be brought under one final form of mastery: emotional discipline. This is the unspoken edge, the silent strength that determines whether you will endure or collapse under pressure. Because no matter how clear your vision, how deep your preparation, how faithful your trust, or how valuable your service, if your emotions are not governed, your destiny will drift. This is why some of the most talented people fall short, while others, seemingly with fewer resources, quietly ascend to greatness. They have learned the art of internal control. They have discovered that mastery of self is the gateway to mastery of results. And so the next chapter in our transformation is this: you must learn to command your emotional state. You see, emotion is energy in motion. It fuels action, it colors perception, it shapes decisions. But like a river without banks, it can flood and destroy everything in its path, if not contained. And most people live their lives ruled by their emotional weather. One disappointment can throw off their whole week. One insult can make them doubt their worth. One rejection can cause them to abandon years of effort. But not you. You're learning to stand in the middle of life's chaos with the calmness of a mountain. You are not the storm. You are the eye of the storm. You are learning to observe emotion without becoming it. And in doing so, you are becoming dangerous in the most powerful, most focused, most effective sense of the word. Let me be clear. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is awareness and redirection. The man who denies his emotion becomes cold. The man who surrenders to it becomes chaotic. But the man who observes his emotion, who listens to what it is trying to say without letting it dictate his behavior, that man becomes unshakable. And this is who you are becoming. Calm when others panic, focused when others scatter, centered when others spin out of control. And this power is not found in books or theories or even in these words alone. It is found in the moments of pressure, when you choose awareness over reaction, reflection over impulse, and principle over emotion. And what are those principles? They are the anchors of your new life. You are not moved by gossip. You are not disturbed by delay. You are not shaken by the opinions of the crowd, because you've built your identity not on feelings which shift like the wind, but on values which hold like stone. Your values now guide your speech. Your values dictate your decisions. Your values define your relationships. And this makes you rare, because while most people are ruled by moods, you are ruled by mission. While others wait to feel ready, you act from commitment. While others collapse under pressure, you rise through it. This discipline gives you something very few ever know: peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from silence or external calm, but the kind that lives inside you like a steady flame. And once that flame is lit, nothing can extinguish it. Not fear, not setbacks, not the shifting tides of public opinion, because you've chosen to govern your inner world. And that choice, repeated daily, will separate you from the masses forever. From this space you will speak differently. You will walk differently. You will influence differently, because power radiates from those who are internally anchored. It is sensed, it is felt, and it cannot be faked. Here's a truth most will never tell you. The most valuable person in any room is not the smartest, not the loudest, not even the most skilled. It is the most emotionally stable. Because in times of stress, people look to the one who is still. In moments of confusion, they look to the one who remains grounded. And in periods of transition, they follow the one who moves with calm confidence. That can be you. If you build this discipline now, not tomorrow, not someday, now. Begin today to master the micro moments, the moments when you're frustrated, anxious, uncertain. Choose response over reaction. Choose breath over argument. Choose presence over panic. These small choices made repeatedly forge the character that can carry a great destiny. And in this spirit, I offer you your next declaration. Write it, speak it, commented boldly so others can draw strength from it. I am calm under pressure. I choose principle over emotion. I master my inner world. Let this become your new identity. Not someone who is tossed by feelings, but someone who rides above them. Not someone who reacts to life, but someone who directs it. This is not coldness, it is clarity. It is not apathy, it is authority. And once this authority lives inside you, you will find that life itself begins to respond differently. The chaos will not touch you the same way. The setbacks will no longer define you, and the opinions of others will no longer distract you from your mission. Now let me remind you, this mastery is not a moment. It is a practice. It is a habit formed through repetition, reflection, and resolve. It will take time. You will fail. You will lose your temper, your focus, your grounding. But each time you do, return. Each time you stumble, realign. This is the work. This is the path. And if you stay on it long enough, you will become the kind of person who cannot be ignored, because your very presence will carry weight. Not noise, not arrogance, but a depth that only discipline can build. So as we close this part of the journey, remember, no matter how big your vision, how strong your preparation, or how bold your service, none of it can survive without the stabilizing force of emotional mastery. It is the foundation beneath your ambition, the root beneath your fruit, and if you cultivate it now, you will rise far beyond the reach of ordinary frustration. You will become the kind of person success depends on, the kind of person people trust, the kind of person life rewards. Because while others seek control outside, you have claimed the only control that matters within. Now that you've cultivated clarity, preparation, trust, service, and emotional mastery, you stand at the edge of a new challenge, one that separates the merely disciplined from the truly powerful. That challenge is consistency. Because the world does not reward effort alone, it rewards sustained effort, not intensity in short bursts, but steady, deliberate progress over time. This is the rarest trait in all high achievers, the ability to keep showing up, to keep moving forward long after the excitement has faded, to persist without applause, to work without external motivation, and to hold the line when others would let it go. Consistency is not glamorous, it is not dramatic, but it is the invisible engine behind every visible result. Without it, all previous growth will wither. With it, even the smallest seed will rise into something mighty. You see, most people begin strong. They start with energy, with enthusiasm, with visions of success playing in their minds. But when the days get dull, when the path becomes long, when no one is watching, they stop. Not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked consistency. Their results are sporadic because their effort is sporadic. Their confidence is unstable because their commitment is unstable, but you are different. You are learning the power of rhythm. You are becoming the kind of person who keeps their word, especially to themselves, the kind of person who doesn't need to feel like it to follow through. And in this, you join the elite few who create extraordinary results from ordinary days. Let me offer you a new perspective. Success is not one giant leap. It is a series of small, often boring, faithful steps. It is waking up and doing the work even when you're tired. It is sticking to the plan even when the novelty wears off. It is saying no to distractions again and again until they lose their power over you. And every time you do this, every time you choose discipline over impulse, you are casting a vote for the future you desire. Not with words, but with action. And action repeated consistently builds character, builds trust, builds results. Because in the end, your life is not defined by what you say you want, it is defined by what you do daily. Consistency also creates momentum, and momentum is the most powerful force in your favor. Once it begins, everything becomes easier. You wake up with more clarity. You move with more confidence. You attract new opportunities. Why? Because momentum signals to the world and to yourself that you are serious, that you are no longer dabbling, that you are not waiting for success, you are becoming it. And the longer you stay consistent, the harder it becomes to stop. Your new habits begin to replace the old. Your mind becomes more focused, your emotions more stable, and your actions more aligned with your mission. This is why I urge you not to focus on perfection. Focus on the pattern. You will miss days. You will have moments of weakness. That's not failure, that's normal. The failure is in quitting altogether. But if you fall and return, Again and again, you're winning. Because the mind learns through repetition. It rewires itself based on consistency. And your identity, the version of you that leads, succeeds, and uplifts, gets stronger every time you show up. Every time you do the work, when it would have been easier not to. You are becoming that person, not dreaming about it, not talking about it. Becoming. This is the path of the builder, the architect of his own life. And builders don't just think, they act. They work the plan, they refine the blueprint, they adjust when necessary, but they never abandon the project. You are building something bigger than comfort. You are building legacy, integrity, excellence. And these things are not built in a weekend. They are forged in the quiet repetition of daily effort. You must fall in love with the process, the reps, the rhythm, the seemingly small decisions that compound into greatness. Because when you do, the work becomes worship. The routine becomes your ritual, and the path becomes its own reward. And so I offer you your next command. Speak it, write it, comment it. Now I am consistent. I am unstoppable. My daily actions build my destiny. Let this be more than a sentence. Let it be a standard, a line you will not cross, a code you live by. Because when you become consistent, you become trustworthy, not just to others but to yourself. And there is no greater power than a person who trusts their own word. When you know that you will show up, no matter how you feel, you remove the greatest barrier to success, self-doubt. You stop negotiating with weakness. You stop relying on motivation. You become governed by decision. And that decision, made once and kept daily, becomes your superpower. Now let me give you something practical. Choose one area of your life, just one, and commit to showing up every single day for the next 7 days. It might be writing, studying, training, creating, selling. Doesn't matter what it is. What matters is the daily act, the uninterrupted chain. You are teaching your brain that your word is law, that your effort is not optional, that your dream is not a wish, it's a command. And each day you show up, the compound effect takes hold. What once felt hard becomes habit. What once felt like resistance becomes routine. And one day you look back and realize it wasn't one giant act that changed your life. It was one small act repeated 1,000 times without excuse. So before we continue, ask yourself, have I been consistent, or have I only been committed when it felt convenient? Because now is the moment to choose, to draw the line, to decide once and for all that you will become the kind of person who finishes what they start, who follows through, who builds, not in a flash, but with daily fire. This is how you separate yourself. This is how you rise, not by talent, not by chance, but by consistency. Most people drift not because they lack ambition, but because they lack alignment. They are chasing goals they never truly chose, living out scripts they never wrote, competing in games they don't even enjoy, and all the while they wonder why they feel empty. Why, even when they hit a milestone, it feels hollow. The answer is simple. Their actions were not connected to their core. Their days were not aligned with their values. Their work was not an extension of their soul. But you are awakening. You are remembering that this life is not a race, it is a mission. And your mission must be lived with intention, not just in the big things, but in the smallest details. Because everything you do carries energy. Every word, every gesture, every choice either aligns you with your future or delays it. With clarity, preparation, trust, service, emotional discipline, and consistency as your foundation, we now arrive at the 7th pillar, a pillar that transforms all the rest into something divine, intention. It is not enough to simply move forward. You must know why you move, and you must direct that movement with purpose. Intention is the difference between activity and alignment. It is the difference between being busy and being effective. It is what gives meaning to your effort, direction to your discipline, and sacredness to your work. Without intention, you may climb a ladder, only to find it leaning against the wrong wall. But with intention, even the smallest act becomes an arrow pointed toward your destiny. And this is the message too many forget. What you do matters, but why you do it matters even more. But this requires awareness, and awareness requires pause. You must slow down, not in action, but in thought. You must begin each day not with frantic motion, but with grounded reflection. Ask yourself, what matters most today? What impact do I want to have? What energy will I bring into every room, every project, every conversation? Do this and you will begin to lead, not just in position, but in presence. Your life will no longer feel reactive, but directed. You will feel less exhausted and more energized because you are no longer scattering your power. You are channeling it. You are no longer hoping for progress. You are choosing it. And this is the edge you now sharpen. Conscious creation. From now on, you do nothing by accident. You do not scroll mindlessly. You do not speak carelessly. You do not begin a task without first asking, "What is my intention here?" This one question asked throughout your day will separate you from 95% of people walking through life on autopilot. Because intention is the great activator of inner power. When you live with it, you become magnetic. You draw to yourself the people, resources, and opportunities that match your focus. You no longer attract chaos because chaos no longer lives in you. You no longer settle for distraction because distraction is now a foreign language to your soul. You are becoming a transmitter of clarity, and the world cannot resist a clear signal. So let me ask you, what is your intention today? Not your goal, your intention. How do you want to show up? Who do you want to become as you pursue this dream? What energy do you want to carry into your work, your relationships, your thoughts? Because once your intention is clear, your action becomes clean. You move with presence, you lead with authenticity, you speak with resonance, and you create from a place of power, not pressure. This is why some people can do the same work but get radically different results. It's not just what they do, it's the energy behind it. One man speaks with doubt, another with conviction. One woman writes with fear, another with purpose. The action looks the same, but the intention transforms the impact. And so I give you your next declaration. Declare it aloud. Declare it in the comments, write it at the top of your journal each morning. I act with intention, my energy is focused, my life is on purpose. Let these words not just be said but lived. Let them shape your posture, your tone, your calendar, your vision. Because when you move with intention, you no longer waste time. You no longer confuse motion with progress. You become efficient, effective, and deeply fulfilled. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing what matters with your whole heart. Do not misunderstand me. Intention does not eliminate difficulty, it does not erase resistance, but it gives you something far more powerful: resilience. Because when you know why you're doing something, you can endure almost anything. The obstacles become part of the path. The setbacks become teachers. The critics become irrelevant. You are no longer tossed by external waves because your internal compass is strong. You're not seeking ease, you're seeking alignment. And that alignment gives you stamina, clarity, and the ability to walk through storms with peace in your heart. This is where true power lives. Not in being loud, not in being fast, but in being aligned. And when you are aligned, you become unstoppable. Not because you force results, but because you flow with them. You become like water. Adaptable, resilient, uncontainable. You no longer push your way through life. You are pulled by a vision that lives in your bones. And that vision, fueled by consistent intention, will carry you further than hustle ever could. Because hustle burns out, but purpose, practiced daily, becomes your eternal fire. So today, slow down for a moment. Breathe, listen. Ask yourself, what am I really building here? Who am I becoming in the process? Am I in alignment with what matters most to me? And if the answer is yes, amplify it. If the answer is no, adjust it. Either way, do not drift. Do not hope. Do not let another week pass you by without anchoring yourself in intention. Because when you choose to live deliberately, to act with full awareness, to walk through each day with purpose in your step, you will rise, you will attract, you will lead, and most of all, you will finally feel like your life is no longer happening to you, but through you. You've now walked through the pillars of clarity, preparation, trust, service, emotional mastery, consistency, and intention. You've stood in front of the mirror and declared who you are becoming. And now, in this final chapter, we turn to the ultimate convergence of all these traits: embodiment. The world responds not to what you plan, what you say, or even what you hope. It responds to who you are, not in private moments alone, but in the living, breathing essence of your daily presence. Embodiment is when the inner work becomes visible, when the dream lives in your voice, when the belief walks with you into every room, when the principles are no longer something you recite, they're something you radiate. And this is where few arrive, not because they lack the ability, but because they've never fully accepted the role they were born to step into. Leader, example, evidence. To embody your vision means you no longer separate the goal from your identity. You're not just someone pursuing success. You are success in motion. You are no longer trying to become confident. You are the embodiment of confidence. You're not asking if abundance is possible. You walk like someone who knows it's inevitable. This is where power no longer comes from trying. It comes from alignment, from being. The person who embodies their future does not need permission. They do not need constant reminders. They move with calm authority because they've already rehearsed the version of themselves that matches the outcome they desire. And now it is simply a matter of expressing that version fully, freely, and without apology. And if you're wondering how to begin this embodiment, let me remind you, you already have. Every step you've taken through this journey, every declaration, every discipline, every moment of doubt overcome is shaping a new identity. But now it's time to live it out, publicly, proudly, permanently. No more hiding, no more shrinking, no more waiting for some future version of yourself to arrive. That version is here, today, and the world is waiting to meet them. So speak like the person who already has what they desire. Dress like it, walk like it, build like it, serve like it. Carry yourself like your results are catching up, not starting from scratch. This is not delusion. This is identity creation. And when you embody something long enough, the world has no choice but to reflect it. This is the principle behind the most powerful transformation known to man. Act as though it were impossible to fail, and act as though it were already done. Because what you accept as your state of being becomes your reality. It rewires your choices. It reconditions your voice. It reprograms your posture. This is why we say you become what you think about. Because what you think about long enough, with enough emotion and repetition, you eventually act out. And what you act out with enough conviction, the world responds to as truth. Not because it's magic, but because it's law. So right now, I want you to write and speak the final embodiment command. I am living proof of the life I chose. I move like it. I speak like it. I am it. Say it aloud. Say it again. Say it until your voice carries the tone of someone who believes it completely. Embodiment also means you stop seeking. You stop trying to find external signs that you're on the right path. You stop measuring yourself by how quickly others validate you, because the person who embodies doesn't need signs. They are the sign, they are the message, they are the walking evidence that discipline, clarity, service, and consistency work. This means you begin showing up as the mentor, even if no one's asked. You begin serving with generosity, even if no one's watching. You begin building with precision, even if the stage is still empty. Why? Because you no longer need to be discovered. You've already discovered yourself. And when that happens, the world can't help but notice, not because you're louder, but because your energy speaks louder than your voice ever could. Now let me speak to your future, just once, as clearly as I can. If you live this way for the next 30 days, for real, with no excuses, no breaks, no apologies, your life will not just improve, it will evolve. You will rise into a category of person that cannot be ignored. You will move with the kind of confidence that cannot be faked. And you will become the kind of human being others point to and say, that's what it looks like. You'll stop hoping, you'll start knowing. And from that knowing, every decision, every result, every relationship will change. Because when you embody success, you magnetize everything aligned with it, and you repel everything that isn't. And so we complete the journey with this truth. You get what you ask for, if you become the version of yourself who has already received it. That is the key. That is the law. That is the secret most never learn. And it was never hidden. It just required the courage to believe, to act, to serve, to persist, to lead, and finally to embody. You are that person now. You've crossed the threshold. There is no going back, and you wouldn't want to, because everything you thought was missing was never out there. It was waiting inside you to be activated. And now that it is, you have one task left. Live it, every day, every breath, every step. Before we part, I ask only this. If this message moved you, if it awakened something inside you, then share it. Leave a comment, subscribe. Let the world know you were here, that you heard something worth passing on. Because someone else is searching right now for this exact message, and your engagement could be the bridge that delivers it to them. Let's not be passive with the truth. Let's be the ones who carry it forward, who speak it boldly, who embody it completely. And in doing so, may our lives not only change, but may they become the change for others.